Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Accelerating Government Opportunities presented by Winvale and Boscobel. We're excited to see such a great turnout, and we hope you enjoy the show. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our panelists, but before I do, please note that if you have a question, you can use our question pod on the screen for any questions you may have throughout the program, and we'll answer them at the end. Winvale is the only GSA schedule consultant and government sales advisor that is also a thriving government contractor with its own well-established government contract vehicles, GSA schedules, and sales teams. Since 2003, Winvale has assisted more than 1,000 organizations in accelerating and growing the government sales opportunities. Boscobel is a top 20 PR and marketing firm in the D.C. area. Boscobel helps commercial clients market to government. They support 8 companies, small businesses, mid-tiers, and large integrators. They provide PR, advertising, social media, thought leadership programs, customer case studies, branding, graphic design, white papers, websites, blogs, videos, and events. They also have the only pre-RFP communications program in the area. Our first panelist is Cindy Sue. Cindy is Winvale's business development practice lead. Here, she and her team work with commercial companies that want to sell their goods and services to the government. Cindy's expertise includes acquisition policy, issues with government contracting, procurement, small business, legislative and regulatory affairs, project management, and executive leadership. Next, we'll have Patrick Dalton, who is Winvale's lead business development analyst. Patrick supports the BD Group's government research and opportunity identification efforts. He is instrumental in developing relationships for Winvale's clients and making sure that the core product and service requirements are clearly defined. Patrick also supports Winvale's sales efforts for program policy analysis, as well as key decision-maker outreach. Last, we'll have Joyce Bosk, president of Boswell Marketing Communications, a woman-owned small business. Joyce is a 35-year industry veteran who is devoted to helping small, medium, and large businesses market themselves to the government. Joyce and her team differentiate Boswell by their close and enduring relationships with their clients and the press. Joyce has been covered in several outlets, including MSNBC, NPR, The Washington Post, and Federal News Radio. Please keep in mind during the seminar, if you would like to view the entire presentation, you can click the full screen button in the top right-hand corner. And if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the Q&A pod on your control panel. Thank you, and Pat, you can take it away.
Thanks, Taryn. Good afternoon, everyone. Some of the questions that will be covered in today's webinar are, what is government business development? What is the size of the small business market? And then how do you appear to the government, both in your web presence and in your marketing materials? Also, where are the opportunities? How do you find them, and what resources are available to find them? And how to effectively win business. Knocking on doors just isn't enough. You'll also be identifying networking opportunities, and then we'll touch on some government marketing. So what is government marketing? Where do you start? What is a federal website audit? And your federal marketing toolkit. At the end, we'll also have time for Q&A. What is government business development? Government business development is there to help you shorten your sales cycle. Government business development is typically also used to outsource your federal sales team to more experienced personnel. Government sales cycles tend to be long, lasting from anywhere from 18 to 24 months. With government business development, you can shorten your sales cycle. You can also have the intelligence for marketplace intelligence, having the experience to understand funding offices and where the funding comes from. It's also cost effective. Hiring a federal sales team and all the resources can be very expensive. You'll also want to develop winning strategies and partners. Having a government go-to-market strategy is very important, along with knowing who to reach out to for partnering. For example, some of the major players in the game, as everyone knows, are Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Accenture, and Booz Allen, and how to reach out to them is very important. And also, outsourcing your representation and support is less expensive than hiring a full team and all the resources required for that. What does government small business market represent? The government has a small business contract goal of 23%, which Cindy will discuss later on in the presentation. As you can see from the chart, certain agencies focus on certain small businesses more than others. If you're a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, it is not surprising to see that DoD and VA award a lot of contracts to those type of businesses. As you can see, if you look at the very first column, the Navy, Army, and Air Force, and the VA all spend in the $1 billion for those type of companies. This chart does not show you, however, the subcontracting opportunities that are out there. So when you're partnering with Accenture, Booz Allen, Northrop Grumman, and Lockheed Martin, these figures are not represented. But the funding out there is also greatly available for small businesses. Cindy will now talk about the overview of small business contracting.
This will give you a brief overview of small business government contracting and where it fits in the overall federal contracting world. The Small Business Act establishes an overall small business prime contracting goal of 23%. Within the 23%, there are specific subcategories for prime contracting goals that are mandated or legislated by law, and they are outlined below. 5% for women-owned small businesses, 5% for small disadvantaged businesses, which also includes businesses that have been accepted into the U.S. Small Business Administration's 8A program, 3% for the HUD zone small businesses, and 3% for service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Remember that the 23% only applies to prime contracting goals. A word of caution in terms of a small business who wants to prime and has a large business as a subcontractor in order to assist them in obtaining the work, that the small business is responsible for 51% of the work. If you are a small business and this is your first time to venture into the federal contracting world, it may be a little difficult for you to get that first prime contract. Another way to get yourself into the federal market is looking at subcontracting opportunities, which is a good way to build up your federal past performance. The majority of large multi-million-dollar contracts requires prime contractors to submit a subcontracting plan that will meet certain percentages of their small business subcontracting goals. I have seen plans in terms of percentages that must go to small businesses that are subcontractors up to 80%. And why this is important for the prime is every federal contractor has what is called a past performance. And their past performance is very important in order for them to be able to get more business within the federal market. And the contracting officer, the federal contracting officer, will determine how their prime contractor is doing by how they meet their subcontracting goal as one of their mitigating factors. In terms of who is in charge of making sure that federal agencies meet their 23% contracting goal is the U.S. Small Business Administration. And the U.S. SBA is a good way to get your foot in the door and to go and get counsel and guidance on how to position yourself into the federal market, as well as understanding the federal market. In addition, each federal agency on their own has their own small business office, and just like with SBA, their primary function is to help small businesses get business or get their foot into the door with that particular agency. What is important in terms of how you appear to the government is also very important. Certain things that you want to have in your toolkit includes an elevator pitch. Basically, what you want to say in 30 seconds or less is your core capabilities. What makes you different from the rest of the small businesses that are coming to the agency? Are you an 8A small company? Are you a woman-owned small company? Or are you a service-disabled veteran-owned small business? These little factors will help. In terms of your website and capability statement, we will go more into that in the next slide, but those two entities are very important as well. In terms of a white paper or case study, that is also very important, even if this is your first time to venture into the federal market. It's important to show and to showcase solutions, whether you've put them in the commercial sector or you've done them already in the federal sector, on how your solution helped solve a problem. Basically, the question that you need to ask is, how is my solution going to make life easier for the government in order for it to do its job? And how you can effectively get your name out there is through networking. Networking is very, very important, and networking not only with federal agencies, but also with other companies in the federal market. We'll go into more detail in another slide. In terms of your capability statement and government website, these are these two items are pretty much your foot in the door. In terms of your capability statement, the things that you want to focus on is how you present yourself to potential partners as well as the federal government. You want to have, if you own a GSA schedule, you want to make sure that you have information on that. If you are on any other GWAC schedule or an IDIQ, that's also very important information to put on your capability statement. You also want to have a contact information, specifically somebody on your team that understands the federal market. When the government calls, whether it's a program manager or a contracting officer, that individual wants to make sure that whomever they're talking to understands the federal market and the federal regulations. In terms of what makes you special and unique, I go back to any subcategories for small business. Are you an 8A? Are you a woman-owned small business? Are you a service-disabled veteran-owned small business? Those special, unique differentiators will make it important for you. And also, what's on your past performance? You also want to highlight all of the work that you've done, primarily in the federal sector, whether it's subcontracting with a large or subcontracting with a prime contractor, or if you were able to prime on a contract on your own. In terms of your government website, you want to include all the same types of information that you included in your capability statement, but you also want to make sure that your capability statement is easily accessible through your website and easy for the government or a potential partner to download. Other things that you would want on your website as well as capability statement is your DUNS number, your cage code, your NEXT code, and also any contracting numbers or contracting projects that you're on. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this over to Pat, and he is going to outline where the opportunities are.
Thanks, Cindy. So yes, everyone wants to know where are the opportunities. You can find them in a variety of places. The first one I'll talk about is Federal Business Opportunities, FedBizOps, or FBO.gov. When you have an FBO.gov account, you are able to set up saved searches or search agents. In those saved search agents, you can have it separated by your type of business. So again, if you're a woman-owned small business, a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, an 8A company, a hub zone, so on and so forth. You can also have it search for pre-solicitations and sources sought. I would typically say to avoid the RFPs, because once an RFP comes out on FBO, it's pretty much baked for one of your competitors, and your chances of winning it are slim to none. So just going through the exercise really wouldn't do anything for you guys in the win column except give you experience in submitting proposals. Also, you can have these search agents set up to run daily, weekly, or monthly. I would recommend daily, so that way as the opportunities come out, you have the ability to reply immediately and get in front of the contracting officer. The contracting officer is typically listed at the bottom of the solicitation along with all the documents that you can download. There'll be documents such as the statement of work and a question and answer document that you can submit your questions about what type of software or what type of solution the government is looking for, and the government will get back to you. Also, there's something called a watch list. So after you've created your account, you found an opportunity you want to go after, you can add it to your watch list. And the great thing about this is you do not have to check on that opportunity daily. You will get actually a separate email from the normal search agents that tell you something has been modified to that opportunity, whether the opportunity's been canceled, whether the date's been pushed back, whether they've made some modifications to the amendments or the statement of work that they're looking for. Along with that, you'll be able to click on something called Interested Vendors. Now this is really interesting for small businesses. It gives you a couple different outlooks of it. You can actually see how many companies are going after this opportunity. Sometimes you'll see 4, sometimes you'll see 300, and you'll know what type of level the government is looking for. You'll also be able to find teaming and partnering companies. So if they're looking for an 8A company, and you are not an 8A company, but you can do part of the solicitation, you can reach out to the 8A companies listed on the interested vendor list, have a conversation with them, partner with them, and then you both can go after the opportunity. But just to follow up what Cindy says, if that's the case, the social economic set aside for the opportunity needs to make sure they are doing 51% of the work. The next one are the procurement forecasts. Procurement forecasts can be found on all the small business websites. Just a word to the wise right now, with continuing resolution being out there, not every agency on the small business site has their procurement forecast up and running. For example, I was on the HHS site this morning, and their procurement forecast is still not out. But most agencies do have them out right now. Typically, they are an Excel or PDF file that you can download, and the opportunities are searchable by NAICS codes. So whatever NAICS codes your companies fall under, go ahead and review those procurement forecasts, and what they also give you is a contact. Send an introductory email with the capability statement Cindy talked about earlier, introducing your company and how you guys can help with that solicitation. The next two I will talk about together. So Federal Procurement Data System and USA Spending. Both show the same data but in different ways. USA Spending to me is a lot more user-friendly, but what you can do with those websites are you can actually look for large contracts that have been awarded or small contracts that have been awarded as well and see who won them, how long they've won them, and also find out when the contract is coming up for recompete, so you can actually get your solicitation together and get in front of the contracting officer and the department within the agency ahead of time and explain how you guys can be more effective. It's also a good way to find large companies that hold large primes. So when you're looking at Accenture, Booz Allen, Lockheed Martin, to name a few, you can look at their large IT contracts or their large consulting contracts and partner with them for when the contract comes up for recompete. The Office of Management and Budget is also a great place to find opportunities because they list them just as the previous sites do. Next, we'll discuss how to effectively win business. How to effectively win business is a lot harder than it might sound. Getting in the door with your past performance is just the first step. You have to knock on many doors and turn over as many stones as possible, and you have to be proactive about this. So when you're reaching out to the small business offices, you have to reach out to them and follow up as well. Same thing goes for when you're reaching out to the prime contractors. Just making one phone call or sending one email will not generate any money for your company. You need to educate yourself. So as I stated earlier, when you're reaching out to these small business specialists and you're reaching out to prime contractors, learn about the contract before you email them. Be able to tell them that this is the opportunity you're interested in, and this is why you're interested to partner with them, or this is why you're interested in talking with that agency. And make yourself stand out. Don't just go in there and say, you know, we do service-oriented architecture, or we sell widgets. Explain why your widgets are the best. Certifications and past performance can really help with that. So having a good detailed capability statement of all your past performance and a case study talking about some past performance will also help a lot. And small business representatives, let's remember this, they are there to help small businesses. It is their role and their job to get the small businesses in front of the right program managers, in front of the right prime contractors, and in front of the right decision makers within the company. And I cannot stress this enough. Remember, be prepared. Doing your homework will make these meetings be much more successful. The last thing I will talk about is identifying networking opportunities. Small business vendor sessions are held either monthly or quarterly depending on the agency. And a lot of them are structured to where you only get 3 15-minute meetings. So if a vendor session is from 9 a.m. to noon and you only get 3 15-minute meetings, I would still suggest showing up for the whole thing. A lot of times people do not show up, or not everyone has a meeting schedule every 15 minutes. So not only can you get the 3 that you scheduled for yourself, you can typically get 2 or 3 more that you didn't schedule and actually meet with 6 different agencies or departments within the agency. Trade shows are a good way to find partners and teaming companies to go after government business. One place to search is govevents.com, which will show you a wide variety of events that are coming up and trade shows that you can participate in to get your name out there, not only with government officials, but also with industry people as well. Trade association groups and professional associations are very important to join. They're probably the best way to find a good partnering company or a good teaming company. and will also lead to subcontracting opportunities. The reason why that's important is if you can build up your subcontracting opportunities, it's a lot easier to win prime contracts, and subcontracting opportunities can actually be closed a lot faster than prime contracts. I will now be turning it over to Joyce to talk to you about what is government marketing.
Thank you so much, Patrick. So speaking about what is government marketing, first of all, if you're new to this particular industry, really try to read and listen as much as you can. Read the trades, for example, Washington Technology or Washington Executive. Listen to the radio, such as Federal News Radio, and watch television. There are contracting shows on Channel 9, WUSA, early on Sunday mornings, and you'll be able to learn a lot more about this very unique vertical. But basically, your role, if you're in government marketing, whether you're starting out and you're a marketing coordinator or specialist, or you're a mid-tier person, such as a marketing manager or a marketing director or vice president, you share the same vision, and that is to support the business development, and our acronym for business development, by the way, is we call it BD, to support the BD people and the sales folks by promoting the company's news and the company's experience. Now, their news can take several forms. The news could be announcing a new product or solution. It could be announcing a new executive. That's newsworthy. It could be announcing a new partnership. And Patrick and Cindy have both spoken a lot today about partnerships and how important they are, again, as a small business, to make those relationships with some mid-tier companies, some primes, but also other small certified businesses like 8A firms, since the government can sole source to them. You have basically three major goals when you're in government marketing. And the first one is just to get your company on the map. So to gain some awareness in the federal market, and that can certainly be done by press releases and a number of other things that we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides. But the second thing, that once you gain the awareness, is that your particular responsibility is to continually create and generate an image of credibility and stability for the company, even if you're small. And the reason for that is that the government buyer is really a lot different than a commercial buyer. This individual is risk averse. And that's true whether the government buyer is a government agency and it's a prime contract, or whether it's a subcontracting opportunity. And again, as Patrick had mentioned, but the reason we're doing all of these things, both marketing and business development, is to try to shorten the federal sales cycle from the 18 to 24 months down. So where do you actually start? Well, you have to start with actually federalizing your brand. So if you approach the government market with what we call a commercial-looking website, the federal government buyer is going to think that you aren't sensitive to their unique needs and requirements, and it's not exactly the way to gain credibility. So again, remember, you have two audiences that you're pleasing. One is the government itself, and the other is the prime contractors, the large companies like the Lockheeds and the Northrops, and then of course there's a lot of smaller businesses. But the place to start is to conduct a website audit. This has to be really independent, and you have to view your website through the eyes of a government buyer and or government partner. And again, remember, those are very risk-averse groups of people. And part of the things that you'll want to do is to focus on your case studies, your customer case studies. That's what they are, which identifies, your customer name, what you did for the customer, what the problem or the challenge was, and the solution, and what were the results. That basically is what we mean by customer case studies, and also by past performance. In addition to that, you'll want to try to include some white papers. Now, white papers used to be, 20, 30, 40 pages long, but the good news today is that they've gotten a lot shorter, and you can actually do white papers in even 2 to 4 papers. 2 to 4 pages is fine now. But again, you want to look for topics that are going to really mean something to the federal market. And then finally, you want to what we call federalize your commercial sales deck. So I'm sure you have a PowerPoint that you're using now for the commercial space, but you have to re-look at that again from the eyes and the viewpoint of the federal market and determine how to actually federalize that. You know, add the certifications that we've spoken about, whether you're a small business, a woman-owned business, a hub zone business, which of course is defined by geography, or a service-disabled vet-owned business. Now the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the federal website audit. And the reason we like to start here is because truly your website is the foundation, of your house. And all of your materials are going to evolve from that foundation. Also think about this. Your website can work hard for you. It can work when you're sleeping. It can sell for you when you're sleeping, and it's your 24/7 salesperson, your 24/7 PR person. And that's the other reason why we start with that. So doing your website audit, the very first place to start is to look at your competitors. And as you recall from a previous slide, Patrick talked about a couple of sites where you can actually put in your NAICS code, and you can determine from that who are your competitors in your space and who are the people, the companies that are actually winning the business. Pick about 3 of those, otherwise you'll get completely overwhelmed, and start to look at what are they showing on their website. You know, what are they doing, and what kind of messaging are they saying to the audience. Then start to kind of pick up that lingo and incorporate your government messaging, which is content, and start to revise copy and your differentiators into the copy. So, for example, you would never have the word business in that. You would have the word perhaps organization or agency. But the third bullet here is really just as important, and that is that if your website is filled with completely commercial images, again, that's not relevant to the government. The government is more comfortable looking at photos that it's used to, that market is used to. So, for example, you might want to look at iStock, where you can pick out some photos for like roughly $50 each. That's iStockphoto.com. Or some other, a little more advanced royalty-free stock photo houses. One is called Jupiter, and that's Jupiter images.com, and Corbis, that's Corbis images.com. And those are a little more expensive, but the nice thing is that you won't be seeing those images on every other website in town. And these are royalty-free, so you wouldn't be having to continually pay for them once you pay your one-time charge. The fourth bullet is to actually include, the government needs to know how to get to you. So you really will frustrate them if you don't tell them how to get to you. So you need to prominently always display your GSA schedule and your contract vehicles. And then finally, if you do all of this correctly, you'll be able to turn your website into a lead generation machine. And that's by adding resources. Because remember, every white paper you add is going to improve your search engine optimization, and every time you refresh your website and add new things, you give people a new reason to come back. So what else do you really need? And there's really about 5 basic tools in the Federal Marketing Toolkit. And the first one is really easy to do, and that's to revise your business cards and make sure that at least on the back of the business card, if you can't get it on the front, you add your GSA schedule and your certifications. Now, the quick and easiest way to do this is to go to something online like a Vistaprint or a GotPrint, where you can get a set of new cards for $10, and that you need as a door opener for sure. And the other thing that you need is a PowerPoint, is the actual PowerPoint presentation. And those are the very first 2 things that you'll need to get into these different meetings. And the other thing that's important is just a one-page summary that would include everything, all of your certifications, what you do, your NAICS codes, and those kinds of things for the quick kind of matchmaker meetings that you can do at the OSDBU offices, which is another acronym, but OSDBU is the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. A few more sophisticated things, again, the case studies. Remember that you can include your commercial case studies for your products and solutions. Government didn't used to want to look at these commercial case studies for your commercial clients, but now they're open-minded to it. So I would include those, and again, your white paper. The white paper should address some kind of technical expertise that you have, or it could also be on an issue. And finally, your capability statement, which is your leave behind. And that's a spiral-bound document. It could be about up to 20 pages or so, and that's kind of your leave behind as you're doing a meeting. Now, remember, when you're first starting out, what you can do is just get nice covers, and you can spiral bind your PowerPoint presentation. And that will help you a lot. As you advance, you'll have a lot more tools that you can add. Remember to join LinkedIn groups, federal government marketing LinkedIn groups. Again, read the federal trades and listen to WFED 1500 AM, which is the federal news radio station, and that will get you really up to speed quickly. Now I'll turn this over to Tara for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Joyce. Also, thank you to Cindy and Patrick for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. We'd now like to open this up to questions. Please feel free to submit your questions by using the question pod on the screen. We'll get to as many as we can, and while you're doing this, we're also going to ask you to participate in this poll that we've got set up for you to take. Please bear with us while we're getting started with the questions, and thank you for your time. And just a quick heads up, we will leave the poll open for a couple minutes or so while we're going through the questions and answering them for you all. Thank you, everyone, for your great questions so far. First question that we have, I guess the question is, are we going to get any presentations, I guess, distributed? I'll hand this over to Patrick.
Sure. The first question we have is, can we get a copy of this presentation? The answer is we will have a follow-up email going out tomorrow to all of you that have participated today. And also, if you'd like a separate copy, please go ahead and request it. You can see our contact information on there. Just go ahead and send the request to me, which is pdalton@winvale.com, and I will make sure to reply promptly with a copy of the presentation. And I'll be passing it back to Tara.
One of the more popular questions right now is, I guess, how do you know which opportunities are good to pursue, and how do you kind of screen which you want to go after or not go after?
So basically what you want to do when you take a look at an opportunity is to really review the requirements or the draft statement of work. Usually if you catch an opportunity early enough, they will have what is called a sources sought or a request for information. Usually in those types of notices, the government contracting officer is doing a market survey. They're trying to determine whether or not a certain social economical category is available in order to meet those requirements. Some of the RFIs and sources sought that I've been seeing have detailed very specifically in terms of how the government contracting officer wants to go, whether it's 8A, service disabled veteran-owned small business, hub zone. Once you get through that, usually typically what happens next is the government contracting officer will then release a draft statement of work. my recommendation is to thoroughly read the requirements for the statement of work and then ask yourself whether or not you as a company can meet one or more of those requirements. If you can't meet more than one of the requirements, then the next option, depending on how large the company, the opportunity is to start looking for partnerships. Start forming partnerships with other small businesses that has a core capability in an area that you don't have that core capability. For example, you're an integrator, an IT integrator for CUTS products. That is your specialty. That is what you do. However, as a part of the statement of work, there is a requirement for information assurance. You know, the best thing to do is to partner with a company that has experience and past performance in information assurance as a way to go after this contract. Those are typically the ways that companies decide whether or not they're going to go after an opportunity.
All right, thank you so much, Cindy. Another question that most people have been asking about is whether they need to have an office or a presence in D.C. to actually do business with the federal government. I'll hand this over to Pat.
The answer to that question is no. You do not need an office here in the D.C. area to do business with the federal government, but you do need to be willing to travel to D.C. to meet with the government agencies and the OSDBU offices. I will now pass this back to Tara for another question.
A question we just got in, what elements should we include or be wary of in teaming agreements? Cindy, I think this is a question for you.
So a couple of things that you want to take a look at when you're drafting a teaming agreement is obviously whatever it is that you draft, you want to make sure that you have an attorney or a general counsel that is familiar with government procurement to review it. A couple things that you definitely want to take a look at in teaming agreements is make sure you have a clear separation of responsibility. Who is responsible for what in terms of the solicitation or the RFP? Especially if you are going after a project and you're the prime and you are being backed by a large business that has agreed to partner with you on a subcontracting basis. One of the things that we are seeing right now is the government going after violators of the 51% rule, which is if you are a small business, you are required to do 51% of the work. So when you are formulating your teaming agreements, you want to make sure that if you do go that route in terms of teaming with a large company, that you have a very clear line of who is responsible for what. What does your teaming partner bring to the table as a company? What is it that you bring to the table as a company to meet the requirements? And that if you are teaming with a large company, that you are doing 51% of the work.
Thank you, Cindy. Another question we have is, I guess, what are the best places to start in terms of networking? What are the best networking groups to join for opportunities? Joyce?
Thank you, Tara. Some of the better-known associations and places to network are going to be AFCEA, AFCEA, and ACT-IAC. And those are very, very large. There's also the Northern Virginia Technology Council, and they have some special interest groups that will focus in on government contracting. Also, so does both chambers, Fairfax County and also Montgomery County chambers as well. And sometimes those are a little smaller. The AFCEA and the IAC are great, but they get a lot of attendees, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming if you're just starting out. Some smaller organizations, but might be really suitable for you, there's one called SECAF, and that's SECAF, and that stands for Small and Emerging Contractors Advisory Forum. And they have some opportunities for non-members to attend, and it's a really great group, and they're very warm and open, and I think it'd be a great way for you to find some partnerships. There's also Tech America. They do a lot of networking events, and then there's kind of an area of niche players. So, for example, there's a firm, which is AFFIRM, which is the Association for Federal Information Resource Management. Then there's AIM, AIIM, which is the Association for Information and Imaging. And then there's also USGIF. So there's a number of niche players as well. I think those are pretty much the primary ones that I can think of. If you're a woman-owned business, though, I would also recommend Women in Technology. And if you're a woman in Homeland Security, believe it or not, there's a Women in Homeland Security. So you can pretty much drill down to a lot of different sub-verticals. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you, Joyce. Another question just came in. Other than the U.S. SBA website, what are some other website examples to find procurement information in order to gather government contacts?
Thank you, Tara. Besides the U.S. SBA website, you can start with a few. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, FBO.gov will give you a lot of information about awarded contracts, who won them, and who the contracting officer was that you can start by reaching out to them. You can also use FPDS.gov or USAspending.gov. Both can pull the same information, but as I said earlier in the presentation, USA Spending has a much more user-friendly feel to it. You can actually pull up awarded contracts dating back the last 10 years, see who the primes were, see who some of the subcontractors were, and also you can look at the contracting officers again there and what programs funded it. A lot of times also, if you go to the agency's website, and not just the U.S. Small Business website, but DOL.gov, DOE.gov for a few examples, you can also find up program managers and other lists of contacts there. For example, if you're in the public affairs realm, you can actually go to the public affairs section of the Department of Labor's website, and they'll tell you who the director is, along with public affairs specialists and countless other contacts for you. The last place to look would be to join a subscription to one of the many providers out there. Carroll Publishing is one, Leadership Directories is another, along with BGov and Centurion. Those are all subscription websites, so there are some fees involved in that, but they are other ways to find contacts that you're looking for.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Another question that's popped up, I guess some people have talked about mentor-protege programs and what that entails and how that can help you out as a small business or just starting out into the federal market. Joyce, would you like to take this question?
Sure. Sure, Tara, thank you. And perhaps Patrick and Cindy have a few more because they are popping up every day. But they do help you shorten your sales cycle. So again, the one thing to look into is a mentor-protege program, and that's when you as a small business will partner with a large business. So it's a one-on-one relationship. So there's a few places you should look for that. One is the Department of Defense, DoD, has a mentor-protege program that's been around for many, many years. And they match make, for example, your organization with maybe like an SAIC or like an L3. The Small Business Administration has a very popular mentor-protege program. Again, these all you have to apply for them, and so it does take a little bit of time. And the another one is GSA. They have a mentor-protege program. In addition to that, some of the associations and trade organizations that we talked about networking, they have their own mentor-protege program. So, for example, IAC has one that partners, and it's a great way because as a small business, that large business is going to help you in a lot of ways. They'll help you with your marketing, they'll help you with your operations, and they'll start to team with you, and that gets you a lot more experience with the government. Another one that you might want to consider, some of the universities have their own mentor-protege programs. So we've been working with George Mason University, and they are doing a great job on their program. So I would, if you're in that area, I would definitely take a look at that one. Those are a few that I can think of, but anyone else want to add to that, or we can move to the next question?
Thank you so much, Joyce. I think we'll move on to the next question right now. We were asked, is there a website or a place to go for an 8A small business to gain more direct award projects? I guess they're specifically a construction company, and they use FBO and FPDS. And Cindy, I think you'll take this.
So one of the things that you have to look at is when you're doing your research and asking questions is how the government procures your goods and services. Specifically for the construction industry, most of that work is being done by government agencies that obviously are building buildings. So some of those particular agencies are GSA's Public Building Service. For the Navy, you have the Navy Facilities Engineering Command. For the Army, you have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. For the Department of Justice, you have the Bureau of Prisons. And typically those types of contracts are awarded to general contractors. And the general contractors are then given the project award and manage it the way that they seem fit to conspire, basically under specs that is done by the architecture or the engineering firm. The best advice that I can give is to do your research on FPDS and to see who is currently holding these large construction contracts. And that fact that you are an 8A firm, as always, every prime contractor has to meet an 8A goal, their 8A goal or a small business goal, and to start introducing yourself to these companies as well as those 3 federal agencies that I mentioned to see if there's any smaller contracts that comes out or that you would be able to go after more quickly. There is no one website for, for set-asides. The only website that is really available is FBO, unless you want to go to some of the earlier websites that Pat just mentioned earlier on, which is talking about looking at future opportunities for the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Cindy. A next question, what have you heard about the SAM or the System for Award Management website? Patrick?
This is a question that we actually get frequently. Unfortunately, everyone, SAM is here to stay. CCR is no longer the website of choice. The one thing I will say about SAM is it's very important to make sure that the contact information in SAM is up to date, and also make sure that all of your NAICS codes are in SAM as well. A lot of government agencies will use SAM when they're doing their initial research. So the more NAICS codes you have in there, the higher likelihood that you'll appear in their search. And again, also, please make sure that all your set-asides are in there. So as Joyce, Cindy, and myself have all said throughout the presentation, if you're a woman-owned, an 8A, a minority-owned, a hub zone, so on and so forth, definitely make sure all that information is in there, because government agencies will use SAM to start their initial research before they put it out to fbo.gov.
Thank you, Patrick. Next question, what types of events should we focus on? Trade shows or industry days or anything that's on a smaller level? Joyce?
Thanks again, Tara. Some of you who have been in the industry for a while, I'm certain have noticed that there have been a lot of cancellations of trade shows lately. I think I've counted about 12 in the past since last year. So there are some trade shows getting canceled, but certainly the local ones that are here in D.C., there's a lot of them that are still viable. I think that people are getting the research that we've seen recently. If you're trying to meet government directly, government is more likely to go to a show that is local in the D.C. area and that is supported by at least an association. They're more comfortable if it's got a trade association somewhere. It just lends credibility to it. But there are a few other things that you can do. Again, there's the website for Gov Events. But there are, if you're a small business, there are tabletop shows that you can do at different agencies or bases around the country, those kinds of things. And then, of course, industry days. Now, there have been a few of those that have been canceled, too. But industry days are great because not only do you get information about the opportunity, but it's a way for you to meet some potential teammates.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I think we're going to move on to our last question. If anybody has any questions they haven't asked yet, please submit it now. Otherwise, this will be the last one. The question is, how do I know which contract vehicles are right for my company? And I think I'll take this to Cindy.
So as we mentioned before, there are a lot of different contracting vehicles, especially if you're in the IT field. One obvious way to very quickly obtain a contracting vehicle is to obtain a GSA schedule. That is the quickest way. There are other ways that are primarily what we consider IDIQ, indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity types of contracts that are generally government-wide acquisition contracts, or GWACs. Some of them I'm sure you've heard of, Eagle. Now it's Eagle 2. I think we're just waiting for some awards to be made. OASIS, the draft RFP for full and open competition, as well as small business, was just released last week. And then you have GSA 8A stars, as well as Alliant. Those particular contracts that I just mentioned are contracting vehicles where you have to go through a traditional RFP process. So the ones that have not been are still in the draft RFP form, what you want to do, as you do with every other contract or RFP, is to look at the requirements, if you meet the requirements. A good example is SOUP. SOUP 5, which is managed by NASA, came out in draft form. SOUP 5, if you really look at the requirements, are geared primarily for commodities, not so much for services. So if you sell software, if you license software, if you sell laptops, mobile phones, computers, those are the primary targets for SOUP. So if you are a company that doesn't sell a commodity, chances are you are probably wasting your time in pursuing a contracting vehicle with SOUP. If you are a contractor that provides IT services, COTS integration, development, things of that nature, if a contract has already, a GWAC has already been awarded, like Alliant or 8A stars, you would want to partner with a company that's already on that particular vehicle. And obviously, like it is with any other partnerships or relationships, you want to make sure that whatever partner or relationship that you are meeting, that you are partnering with, is the right fit, and that you would be able to get a piece of the pie. I've heard numerous issues with small businesses that are on a particular GWAC contract, like Navy Seaport E contract, and they are 34 out of 33 partners, business partners for that particular prime contracting vendor. Those are the types of situations that if you're trying to grow your company, you want to avoid. You want to make sure that whatever partnership that you enter into, whether it's on a prime or subcontracting level, that you have a good chance of winning a project with those particular contracts, because you are spending a lot of overhead and bid and proposal money to try to get the work. So you really want to weigh and make sure that whatever you're going after, you know, you're doing it wisely, and that it is a great fit for you and your company to be successful.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thank you again to the panel, Patrick, Joyce, and Cindy, for sharing their expert knowledge today. If you have any further questions or have any comments or concerns, you have the contact information up on the screen, and also Winvale's website /govbizdev. And then stay tuned for some future topics. And that's it. Till next time. Thank you.